the people pushing the propaganda that caused that guy to do it. Those are the real villains here. And we're going to go after them. And the president's made it clear, we're going to go after them. The ones providing the money, the ones pushing the lies and propaganda, we're going after them.
This is Democracy Watch. Mark, that was a clip of Elon Musk speaking on Fox News that in light of these incidents of vandalism against Teslas, that the federal government is going to go after, that's his exact words, go after the ones pushing the lies and propaganda. So there are two buckets here. There's obviously the vandalism. I don't think anybody here is going to defend vandalism against private property. But then there's this idea that people who are exercising their First Amendment rights are going to face retribution on behalf of the federal government. Can you speak on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite extraordinary. Obviously, no one supports vandalism, and property crimes are crimes. But the idea that people can't criticize Tesla, I mean, I don't know what propaganda he's referring to. I mean, I guess maybe right now, Pam Bondi, if you're listening, you should hear this. I owned a Tesla. I sold it when, shortly after Elon Musk bought Twitter and started spewing all of the stuff that he now spews regularly. I own a Rivian and I love it. I think it's a better car than the Tesla. Okay, now, if I have just committed a crime because you don't agree that I think my Rivian is a better car than my Tesla was, then, I guess come after me. But I mean, seriously, what do they think the First Amendment stands for? We went through the phase in which, I don't remember if it was Bondi or Trump, but one of them said effectively that they are going to treat people who protest or engage in property crimes, again, not excusing them, as like domestic terrorists, and this is like the federal government's main criminal priority. Like, we went through that bit of insanity. To now, what the people who don't like Teslas are we? Next up, Brian, you better watch out. They may force you to buy a Tesla.
That's right. That's right.
Maybe you crime if Brian Tyler Cohen doesn't do his next broadcast from a Tesla.
Yeah. Well, we obviously have limited resources in the government. These agencies, our law enforcement agencies, aren't just staffed to the brim. It's not like we can take on every single case that's in front of us. And so when the federal government signals that its priority now is protecting Elon Musk's cars, whether from physical damage or verbal damage, reputational harm.
Maybe bumper stickers. Maybe you're not going to be able to have a bumper sticker.
What does this come at the expense of?
Well, so it comes at the expense of two things. Number one, as you say, on a limited resource basis, it comes at the expense of them actually investigating and prosecuting real crime, right? Yeah. They are deprioritizing, all kinds of criminal activity that you would think that you want the federal government to be paying attention to. You and I have talked before about how they have essentially disbanded the public integrity section of the Department of Justice, which prosecutes corrupt public officials. We've actually seen them, Brian, pardon some corrupt public officials or public officials convicted or charged with corruption. So it comes at the expense of that. It will come at the expense of going after white collar crimes by billionaires and millionaires who may be, committing crimes in the corporate sector. It comes at the expense of protecting everyday Americans, against other kinds of violent crimes. So all of these things have a trade-off from a resource, but there's a second cost that it imposes that I think is equally as important, which is it causes people to shy away from speech. So we oftentimes talk as lawyers in the First Amendment context, not just about direct restrictions on speech, but things that cause a chilling effect on speech. In other words, they cause people to think twice before saying things that they're otherwise allowed to say. They cause people to not protest where they would otherwise lawfully be protesting. It causes people to not post things on social media or not publish in the newspaper things that they otherwise would. And look, we have seen the legacy media itself, the corporate-owned legacy media, self-censor itself already.
Yep.
Right? I mean, like this is not hypothetical. We have seen them do that since Donald Trump has come to office about Donald Trump. And undoubtedly, are doing it about the oligarchs and the billionaires, whether it's Jeff Bezos who owns one, or the LA Times owner who owns one of these major newspapers, or whether it's just being careful about what gets printed. I mean, I think the Washington Post didn't print a cartoon that was critical of Bezos and other oligarchs. And so the self-censoring effect here, both in the legacy media, but also among individuals, is perhaps the biggest cost. Because if we wind up in a world in which people are not willing to protest against companies they don't believe in, are not willing to criticize automobiles that they don't prefer, are not willing to say that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy, or, to tie this to something we've talked a lot about, are not willing as law firms to take on clients who are accused by Donald Trump, or accused by Elon Musk, or accused by other oligarchs, because they are afraid that they as a law firm will be targeted, or they as a lawyer will be targeted. Well, now you've created this feedback loop in which the federal government says we're gonna go after these people for what they believe or what they say. The law firms won't represent them because they are afraid that they'll be next. The legacy media, they're afraid to publicize this or to editorialize about it because they're either sucking up to Donald Trump or sucking up to Elon Musk, or they're afraid of the consequences. And so what you're left with, Brian, is a very small universe of people who are willing to speak up. There are very few people willing to stand up. And look, you and I have done this series for a very long time. And we didn't start this series because we thought we were going to be the only ones willing to speak out against Donald Trump. We didn't start this series because we thought we'd be the only ones to speak out about the unlawfulness of what we were seeing in this country. We actually started, everyone, because Brian and I had a shared commitment to explain to people what was happening to democracy in court. But now we have to talk about these things because there are so few people willing to. You know, if you are watching this video and you're not already subscribing to Brian Tyler Cohen, you need to click the button. Okay. If you're not already getting his Substack, you need to go do that, because honestly, there aren't that many places left where we can have these conversations and we can inform you of these things. And so, that is, I realize, Brian, a much longer answer to what you really were asking, which was just like, what is the legal consequence, or what is the resource consequence if the federal government isn't prosecuting, is focusing on this and not other things. But I think if we just look at the resource issue at the FBI or DHS or wherever, we're missing how all of that winds up impacting what people are willing to say, what publications are willing to publish, and ultimately what information people are able to learn.
Well, I first of all, I appreciate the call out, and I would say that, whether it's with regard to law firms who aren't capitulating to Trump, news outlets who aren't capitulating to Trump, you are both of those things with Democracy Docket and your firm. So for folks who are looking to show some appreciation for the invaluable work that Mark and his team are doing, a small step that we can all take is to sign up for Democracy Docket. I'll put that link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. As Mark said, we don't have that many outlets out there who are looking to engage in this type of fearless journalism, so please support the ones that do. Mark, you really did answer the whole question with that response. But let me challenge it a little bit in the sense that one way to undermine what the federal government, what the Trump administration is doing, is if this stuff is actually challenged in court. And there is no leg to stand on, because there's no judge who's gonna actually accede to the Trump administration's demands by saying that nobody can say an ill word of Tesla or anything like that. And so is there some potential risk in the Trump administration taking such a big swing here, knowing that they can go to court, they can get smacked down in court, and yes, there might be a broader chilling effect, but if you have a situation where there is some courage on the outside and people are saying, look, like, fuck these guys, we're happy to take them to court, we keep winning, try us. Look, like, there really is nothing to really bolster the courage of folks who are fighting back against this administration. Nothing better than going to court and actually winning over and over and over again. And so is there some risk in taking these huge swings that are destined to fail in court on issues like the First Amendment?
Look, I think you have like just asked the not million, but the $1 billion question, not just on this topic, but honestly on a lot of them. I mean, the administration has made a set of decisions to take big swings, right? They appointed cabinet officials who are clearly unqualified. They didn't have to do that, right? They could have taken smaller swings with their cabinet choices, and frankly wound up with the same policies. But they didn't do that, right? They took really big swings with Tulsi Gabbard, with Kash Patel, with Pete Hegseth, right? And you were scratching your head. I mean, you and I talked about this, and you did a lot of other really great content on this, like trying to puzzle through why do that when it could backfire so greatly. They've taken some really big swings with their executive orders, right? I mean, they could have gone to Congress. They control Congress. They could have gone to Congress and said, pass these laws that do these things. And honestly, they might have gotten a lot of the things done and law, and instead they went a much riskier route with these executive orders. They took a really big swing with Doge. I mean, how popular is what Elon Musk is doing right now in the federal government, right? I mean, that is a really big risk that they took politically in doing that, and legally, right? These things are also all being blocked in court. So you've asked like the really big question that I don't have an answer to, which is, why are they taking big swings on things that they are clearly going to lose over, right? Why are they doing it this way rather than a more subtle way where they might actually achieve much of what they want, but it wouldn't be as vulnerable? And so this is a really good example. Like, why pick the fight over the First Amendment over a car company? I mean, like, when you back up and you just like take Elon Musk and the personalities out of this, if you are the Department of Justice and you want to redefine speech law in the United States, and let's just say that that's part of their mission, they want to be able to criminalize more speech law, or they want to overturn New York Times versus Sullivan, which a lot of conservatives want to do. That's like an announced mission of theirs. Why would you start with a car company? Right? Like, I mean, of all the things, you might, of all the fights, sympathetic plaintiffs or sympathetic victims, rather, why would you start with a car company? But this is the way they are going about it. And I think the way I answer it, but I'm curious your take, is that they actually think that if they win some of these big swings early in the administration, it will destroy the will of an opposition. They will have they've already essentially crushed any opposition within the Republican Party through the forcing the confirmations. They are trying to they've probably crushed the will of much of the oligarchs and the billionaires. They are trying to crush the will of the big law firms. You and I have talked endlessly. I am pretty much they have crushed a lot of the legacy media. I know there are people who are more sympathetic to the legacy media on that front than I am. But I think that they think that they are able to achieve, if not in court, they are able to achieve in the fear that they instill in large institutions, that they may just think it's worth it.
Right. I think that's exactly right. I think that what this administration is trying to do, regardless of the outcome of the specific litigation, is really give a sense that they are the behemoth that they view themselves as. And so if that means that they can take these big swings, knowing full well that they will have some people who are going to capitulate right off the bat, the Paul Weisses of the world, the ABC Newses and CBS, Zuckerberg, Bezos, all of those people, that unto itself is a win. And all of their peers in their respective industries are going to look at what they're doing, and they're going to take their cues not just from what the White House is doing, but from what the respected leaders of each individual space is doing. And when people in tech see Zuckerberg and Bezos do something, when people in the media see the Washington Post and the LA Times do something, when people in each respective field, law, see Paul Weiss do something, they're going to take their cues from that. And so in a way, Trump will have already been successful at what he's trying to do before they've even litigated this for a single second in court, which, to bring this back to kind of give a positive spin on this, really underscores the importance of making sure that everybody stays in this fight and fights back against this stuff, because we have seen that when this stuff is actually challenged in court, we win, and the Trump administration loses over and over and over again. And so you can take, the cowardly route. You can take the Bezos, Zuckerberg, Paul Weiss, ABC News route if you want to, but you're doing that at your own peril, because the flip side of that is showing a little bit of courage, steeling your spine a little bit, actually fighting this thing, and at at the end of the day, winning. And that's what I hope that people will take out of this, is that just the optics of Trump being strong is not enough to actually carry this through, because at the end of the day, when any of this stuff is challenged, we are seeing over and over and over again that it doesn't have a legal leg to stand on. And look, Mark, you and your team have been leaders in fighting back against this stuff to a degree that I think no other, certainly firm, but entity, company, CEO, whatever it is, has been doing. So I would highly recommend for everybody watching right now that these are the kind of people, this is the kind of team that we need to support. And if you haven't yet signed up for Democracy Docket, please make sure to sign up. I'll put the link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. I'm Brian Teller Cohen.
I'm Mark Elias.
This is Democracy Watch.